So I work for Boeing Defense and Space. So we do a lot of the government contracts for defense and space kind of things.
I'm Joe C. Mandel, and this is Raven Conversation. And today I'm joined by Senior Airman Gideon Dawson. So if you've ever seen the 194th My Home Base video, he is definitely a familiar face. He was the narrator, host for that video.
Yep.
You're also on a Title 10 mission currently with the 262 Cyber Ops Squadron over on McCord, kind of been all over the place. And your full-time job is at Boeing, so he's here to talk about his Guard career, what you're doing, and how working at Boeing and being in the Guard kind of help out with each other. So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so intro background on yourself.
Yeah, so I was never a big tech guy, and so I guess backstory prior to my even existing, a lot of military background. Both my great-grandfathers were fighting in the Pacific, World War II. Both my grandfathers, one of them flew Apaches for 25 years on the Army side. One of them was in for about 5 years. And then my dad was a Marine, so believe it or not, was never super interested in joining the military. It wasn't really something that was in the cards that I thought. I actually I wanted to run in college. That was kind of my big life goal, was go to college, run, do that kind of thing. So I did track and cross country in high school, and that was huge for me.
What events?
Mostly the 800, 1600, and 4x4.
Yeah, I was a 4x4, 400, 800
yep,
guy. So
it's just the most brutal possible.
Yes.
But
You want to pick an event where you were hating life, watching every other event happen?
Jelly legs, and then you get thrown in the 4x4 at the end. Yeah, so we had that, and then COVID ended up happening 2020, which was my senior year. And that kind of delayed scholarships in a lot of ways, and kind of made it so that getting scholarships there's a lot less scholarships going around. So I ended up just going to actually Clover Park Technical College for a year, doing software engineering classes, trying to build up to get a degree and a job. And then actually am a longtime friend of one of the recruiters here. And he was basically jokingly like, hey man, like, would you ever consider the Guard? And I was like, no, there's no way. And then thought about it for a couple of days and called him like a week later and was like, all right, let's talk. Like, I would be interested in kind of hearing what the Guard has to offer, because I mean, college is expensive, and that that 2020 to 2021, 2022 time frame was kind of unknown for a lot of people. So I guess my Guard, getting into the Guard and finding out about it, was through a recruiter that I've known for a long time, and was never super interested until I was, and then have been pretty stoked on it ever since.
Yeah,
so.
No interest in the Army, Marines, or anything?
I actually did consider the Marine Corps for a while. I was talking to a recruiter for very briefly, but then decided not to go that route. Thought about the Army just because I do like a lot of the Army mission sets, but I guess the Air Guard, with having the causes out here, which is cybersecurity, was kind of what I wanted to do. Is kind of just the avenue that I ended up going.
Yeah.
So
I always ask, how'd you learn about the Guard? You kind of gave us a quick snapshot, but your cousin's also in the Guard, correct?
Yeah, I have two cousins in the Guard. Yep. So two Cavallis, Technical Sergeant Cavallis over here at the wing, and then A1C Cavallis in PA here as well. So
were they ever trying to get you to join the Guard as well?
Jonas did not too much that I remember. We had kind of talked about the Air Force a little bit, but I don't remember him ever super trying to recruit me.
Yeah.
But he's actually how I ended up at the 262. Because the way that billeting worked, they didn't have slots when I was trying to get in.
Yeah.
But he was able to work some magic and double slot me, which was awesome. So I was able to kind of get straight into the mission set that I wanted, as opposed to going to like the comm squadron or something like that first.
And Jordan's a couple of years younger.
Yeah, Jordan is I think year and a half, 2 years younger than I am. Technical Sergeant Cavalli is 3 or 4 years older than I am. I think he was a senior in high school when I was a freshman.
So now it's kind of more of a family thing.
Yeah, I know. The Cavalli gang has kind of taken over, which it's cool to see a lot of family out here.
So you're part of the 262. You also work at Boeing. So what do you do at Boeing?
So I'm a systems administrator at Boeing. So I work for Boeing Defense and Space. So we do a lot of the government contracts for defense and space kind of things. So I'm up in Kent and sometimes at the delivery center up in Seattle as well.
Okay.
So as a systems administrator, like, we do pretty much all of the IT infrastructure and patching side of it. So we're making sure workstations get out. We're actually implementing all the cybersecurity stuff, because the way Boeing does it is they do basically administrative cybersecurity, and then my job actually fills the role of making sure things get accomplished. So yeah, we work in a variety of labs on different contracts, working on just the IT and security side of developing a product.
Yeah. So right now you're on a Title 10 mission with your unit. I would say, since it is a cyber, it's probably a little bit in the TS and secret level. What are you kind of doing right now that you can talk about?
Yeah, so basically the way the way that cyber units work in the Air Force side, especially in the Guard, is when we go on Title 10, we get tasked up to like an active duty counterpart, essentially. So we take on their name. So right now we're with the 852 CPT, which is basically the Title 10 version of at least our administrative area for the cyber units. Right now we're working a couple. We get tasked down from Cybercom, so we basically get on Title 10, and generally you get like a certain amount of wait period just as you're waiting for missions to drop, and then you end up going out and doing some various things. So I can't really talk about what we're doing or who we're working for right now, but we're out there generally doing analysis on systems that are in place. So say the Air Force has a system, right, or a different branch and agency, whatever. Generally what we're doing is we're going to that place and we're hooking up. We're trying to figure out, what shortcomings do they have? Do they have any security in place? What security do they have? Is it actually effective? Our goal is basically to get there, make sure that there's no, threat actors inside of a network / systems. And then, enable hardening is basically the term. So we don't actually do any of the hardening ourselves. That's totally on whoever we're working for. But, at the end of our mission, once we do an analysis, we'll give them a document. Basically, it says, hey, here's all your shortcomings. You either sucked, you're all right, you're okay. Maybe they're great. It's possible, that's happened before. But generally, on the security side, like in IT in general, you do things until they work. And you kind of leave it be to a certain extent. So, trying to make sure that security is actually in place is a huge deal.
Yeah. And you said you weren't a big IT guy prior to ever joining the Guard.
Yeah, not particularly. Like growing up, wasn't a computer nerd or anything like that. Like I was a very big outdoors guy. But then it worked out well because I kind of wanted to get into like the software engineering, security side of things, or at least give it a try.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy, at least from my experience, like coming from zero experience and having the military, through their courses and your unit kind of build you up.
Yeah. So what kind of training have you gotten in the Air Guard that's maybe helped in your civilian job?
A lot. Yeah. So, the big thing, basically the government has a contract with a company called CompTIA, and they give out a certification called Security Plus. And if you want to do anything administrative on a system, you need that certification. And that's something you get as a result of getting an IT job in the military, so that's huge. Yeah. But also like just the pipeline for our job is super helpful because I went through as a networks guy, which is basically how do things talk? Yeah. Like, how can I send a text message to you? How does this computer send information to another computer? And then you break it down to big scales, like, a LAN environment, which is smaller, and then, the whole entirety of the internet. So I went through as a networks guy, and that was so beneficial for me. You go through an initial, basically IT course. I think it's IT fundamentals is what they call it. And that's just, it's a crash course to all things IT basically. Yeah. And then you kind of break out from there into your shred of like, all right, am I, a sysadmin guy? Am I a networks guy? Am I a security guy? And then it kind of goes from there and you learn like the tricks of the trade, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And then I imagine doing it every day at Boeing has probably helped in your Guard career since you're not a full-time minus being on deployment right now. So what do you bring from your full-time job to your M-Day job?
A lot. So I'm almost done with my bachelor's now. So I've been able to pick up a ton of other certifications and a lot of other coursework schools, which has helped a ton. But, you learn a lot of things, especially on the administrative side, using, primarily Linux and Windows. Because we use primarily Linux and Windows on the military side as well, right? Those just being generally the two biggest operating systems that are used.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot going into Boeing, and then got to Boeing, and then you just realize, the broad scope of, how everything functions from a security and just talking perspective, how everything communicates. So there was a lot when I got to Boeing that I had to learn, to be honest. The military did a great job at prepping me for my job in the military. But then you get to another environment, and this is kind of true in all IT jobs, is you can learn a job and get a job somewhere else that is exactly the same, and it's going to be different. Companies do things differently. They have different protocols, different just ways that they operate, different softwares. So there's a lot of ways that you're just going to have to learn.
Yeah.
And that's just reality. But no, Boeing definitely helped prepare me a ton for the military side as well, just as far as broadening my scope of professionalism and what I know
Yeah.
from an IT perspective.
So the thing that probably took you out of your comfort level was probably narrating a video for PA. So how did that all come about that you got into the My Home Base video?
So it's kind of a funny story. There's a couple reasons that ended up happening. First, so they actually had filmed My Home Base a little over a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. They had filmed a video, and for whatever, there's a number of reasons that video ended up getting scratched by the people we were working with. And I was out here. So I was out here on Title X last summer as well. I was supposed to actually be on an Africa deployment that ended up getting scrubbed. I was supposed to be in Niger, and then they had a coup. There's a couple other things that ended up happening, and the U.S. military ended up getting booted. So I was supposed to be out there on that deployment cycle. But because we couldn't get any planes in or out, I ended up just being here at the unit, basically on full time. So it was kind of a combination of me kind of being here and available. Sergeant Cavalli or A1C Cavalli, being a relative also helped because, he at least knew me and knew that I could probably handle, those scenarios with the video. And then, I guess the availability was probably the biggest thing, but definitely something that I had never done before. So that was a whole new kind of learning experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, you did fantastic. The video, I watched the whole video. It was actually pretty entertaining. I told Jordan later, I was like, hey, I think that was a really well made video.
Yeah, I mean, most of the credit goes to him and the contracting staff that they worked with because, I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and he knows what to look for. Like, everyone sees the video and like the final product and says, oh, that was pretty cool. But the amount of time and effort that went into the recording of that, me messing up and us doing 8 or 9 takes, it's hard, especially when you do like an interview portion, because then you're dealing with like 2 different people that you're kind of running off a script, kind of like freestyling a little bit. So you're trying to make a conversation work, but also convey the information that you want people to know. Yeah, A1C Cavalli did an incredible job on that. It was pretty incredible.
What kind of my last question? What kind of advice would you give somebody who's interested in joining the Guard? I mean, your background is pretty similar to mine. It sounds like I was a high school athlete, had no desire to join the military, and then I just kind of found my way here. So
yeah, I guess my biggest thing is for people that even if you're not interested, at least look into it, because like the military provides so many avenues to like professional development, like school resources, home resources. Like they're, through the VA, there's so many different things that provide like a better life. A lot of people I know that like are kind of unsure about what they want to do in life. I'm like, hey man, just check out the military. And for people that are already interested, like you should at least get in touch with a recruiter. Like if you don't know what you want to do, at least try and do some research on jobs. Because there's a lot of really, really awesome jobs out there.
There are.
And even if you only do it for a handful of years, like that's going to help better your future immensely.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest piece of advice is just look into it. And then if you're like pretty dead set on doing it, like try, get as much out of it as you possibly can. Yeah. That's the big thing.
No, 100%. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, Gideon, and sharing that.
I appreciate it as well.
Hey, if you're interested in seeing the video for My Home Base, we'll throw it in the notes. If you are interested in contacting an Air Guard recruiter, we'll also throw that in there. If you like the video, give it a like. Make sure to subscribe for future videos. And Gideon, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.